All right, I had got cut off from this is the this will be part two. I was going into the second destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. So it's referred to as the fall of the second temple. Now in this now just to preface this, there was a guy named Josephus, and he lived during the time of the fall of the second temple, and he had first-hand knowledge of the accounts of what happened during that time, because he was the mediator between the Romans and the Hebrew Hebrew people. But as I go on and read to you all what happened, we can see that there was just no mediation. It was just a complete and absolute bloodbath. So his account, he records the accounts that happened during during the destruction of the second temple. And his account is identical to other historical accounts of books that were written in that time. So what he documents in his writings is confirmed through other historical books, Roman books, Greek books, African books. All those books, a lot of books confirm his account. So I'm going to read to you what some excerpts from his book. All right. So after the fall of the second temple, Josephus reports, because the soldiers were now growing weary of bloodshed and survivors appear constantly, Caesar orders to kill only those who offered armed resistance and to take alive the rest. The troops, in addition to those covered by their orders, slaughtered the aged and infirm, people to their prime who might be useful. They herded into the temple area and shut up in the court of the women. Caesar appointed one of his freedmen as their guard to decide the fate appropriate to each. Wow. So one of the freedmen that he freed, he decided the fate of the others. All those who had taken part in sedition, he executed. He picked out the tallest and the handsomest of the lot and reserved them for the triumph. Of the rest, those who were over 17, he put in chains and sent to hard labor in Egypt, while Greek numbers were presented by Titus to the provinces to perish in the theaters by swords or by wild beasts. Those under 17 were sold. So this confirms and this fulfills the prophecy of Deuteronomy 28:68, which says, and the Lord shall bring them into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I speak unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. All right. So it goes on to say, some 50, 60 years later. So it goes on to say few Jews remained alive. So this was just it was just ongoing for many decades. It's this is common in, if you read the book of, I'm in the book of Judges now, and I'm reading Judges again, and you would see how the history of how the Israelites will be, freed for a little while. God will send a redeemer, a judge, and he would, free them from captivity. Then they'll go back into captivity for 30, 40, 50 years. All right. So it says around 135 CE, few Jews remained alive. 50 of their strongest fortified cities and 985 of the best cities and villages were demolished. 580,000 died in the battlefield, besides countless others who perished of hunger and pestilence. The entire land of Judea was almost transferred into a barren wasteland. So that is the fulfillment of another prophecy in Deuteronomy that says that their land will be turned to the dust. So Judea, everything was basically a wasteland. So in Deuteronomy 28, it says that you will remain in few. And so by 135 CE, it was very few of them. So this contradicts the African descent slaves that were taken. So we do know that a lot of slaves were taken into captivity in Africa, and they were transported across the Atlantic, and a lot of them were scattered amongst the Caribbean islands, and a lot of them were brought here to the United States. Today, that population has grown. So if you take the whole entire population from the transatlantic slave trade, for those people, we know we are about almost 50 million. The descendants of those people are about 50 million. The Jewish population right now is around 15 million, and this is in comparison to when they were originally just demolished, pretty much, killed and just died off in hunger or whatever. All right. So, going on about the captivity of them, captives were sold into slavery, too great to count. All right, a lot of them were sold into slavery. A lot of them were sold at Gaza in great multitudes. And those who were not sold were herded into ships and were taken to Egypt. Many died in transit, whether by starvation or by shipwreck, while many also were killed by cruel masters. All right, the numbers of the dead were awesome. While multitudes of Jews were taken captive to fill slave markets near and far, the slave markets were particularly famous as a center where Jewish slaves sent into captivity were sold. So many Jewish slaves were available that, according to one report, a Jew was sold for at least as little as the price of a portion of horse feed. So once again, you know, that's Deuteronomy 28 fulfilled. So when you look at Black Africans that were sold, there was no shortage of demand, right? So many Israelites, Hebrews were sold during that time, that they flooded Egypt, and it was so many of them that they could buy them for a price of horse feed. That's you're basically useless. You're just really just, you have no value, right? And a lot of them then that could not be purchased or would not be purchased. They tried to sell themselves into slavery to make themselves a living, and nobody would buy them. A lot of them could not even sell themselves into slavery because that's how useless they were in value, right? In the sight of the Egyptians. But if when you compare that to the African American, the African transatlantic slave trade, that is not the case. There was a very high demand for African slaves because the country at that time was in the great, build, building phase. They were trying to build an entire nation. There was no shortage of demand. Every slave were sold for the highest price. The amount of slaves that you had would, position you in the new world, to sort of say, as and secure your position in prosperity. The more slaves you had, the higher the production, the higher the output, the higher the income, right? So for 400 years, unfortunately, that was the case. It was a constant demand. The demand, it was still going even after Abraham Lincoln had abolished slavery. It was still some slavery going on in the deep, deep South. They wouldn't let him go. They wouldn't let him go because the demand was still there. So it's perplexing to me as to how this narrative has been able to survive for this long. But like I said, when you are a group of an oppressed people, you are looking for some sort of answer. You are looking for some sort of justification as to why all of this has happened. All right. And this is the deception that has been ongoing for years and years and years. And I do believe that Black people I do have theories. I'm not saying that um, they are the Bible truth, but I do have some theories that I will share today. I do believe that the enemy has tried to oppress Black people for a reason. And I do believe that it is to help fulfill the uh, the scriptures. One theory that I do have. Let me make sure I've made all my points first. Okay. So one thing, well, this is not a theory because you can actually see this in real time. Black people have the ability to influence cultural culture and social changes. The Black people throughout history have been at the forefront of a lot of social changes, and those social changes usually are contagious and they impact different areas of the world. So if we, try to overcome something, if we feel that something is injustice, and we, as a group of people, we, petition and we make our stance, then it is documented in history and it is replicated in different parts of the world. Another thing that has been on my mind for years, I ask God this all the time. I remember I used to think about this all the time, that Black people have a way of music, for one, right? So, when you think about rap music, is the only music. I'm just using this as an example, not as the standard or how I think that, things are going to uh how I think. I don't think, rap is Black people's purpose, but when you just take that as an example, it is the only thing that has permeated every single pretty much culture in the world. It has traveled the world. I don't know of any other, even in Asia, they rap and they imitate Black culture. And in China, in Dubai, in the Middle East, and all over the world. So we are at the forefront of social and cultural change. That is a gift and talents that I can distinctively see in Black culture, right? Uh, I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, I was listening to a preacher, and he said, this is what he said. He said that he believed that the Lord had given them this, and it made a lot of sense, because I had this going on in my mind. How are Black people so influential throughout the world? And one of the Bible verses that he brought up was Simon the Cyrene. All right. So I will go there. Hope I didn't. Okay. So I'm going to read that book to you. I mean, that Bible verse to you. And if you don't know it already, this is about when Jesus was on his way to be crucified. And on his way to be crucified, uh, Simon the Cyrene was helped Jesus carry his cross. All right. For the purposes of my videos, I try to read from the King James Version. Um, all right. So it says here, 32. Okay. Let me go down to 32. All right. So the Matthew 27, there's other accounts of Jesus, on his way being crucified. But they mocked him. 31 says, and after they had mocked him, they took the robe off from him and put his own raiment on him, and they led him away to be crucified. And as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by the name. Him they compelled to bear his cross. And when they were coming to the place of Golgotha, that is to say, the place of skull, they gave him vinegar mingled with gall. And when he had tasted thereof, he would not drink. And they crucified him. All right. So Simon the Cyrene, by most accounts, and I'm not saying that this is biblical truth. Believe I to a point believe that he was a man of Black African descent. Now, when I meditated on what the pastor said 2 years ago, and I'm going to get into what he said before. If you remember, okay, you have Simon the Cyrene, then you have Simon Peter. Simon Peter had confessed with his mouth that, Lord, I will be with you until death. I will be, crucified. I will be killed with you. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember, but it was something to the effect that, from he would be there all along the way and he would die with the Lord, if it came down to it, like he would be there. So this was Simon Peter, but here you have a man that is Simon the Cyrene. So it's almost like he was a fill-in for the purpose that Peter was supposed to fulfill, right? So follow me. Those who have ears, let them hear, right? So it's almost so Simon Cyrene, there's another account, and I believe it is in, let me make sure. You Mark Simon. All right. So you have Simon the Cyrene. It's almost as if, you know, if you do a nameplate, if you took out Simon Peter and you have Simon Cyrene, you have a Simon. A Simon was, supposed to fill that role, and Simon Peter was supposed to fulfill that role, but he failed to do so. So here you have Simon the Cyrene, I believe, and it says that he was taken and he was taken. So he was basically enslaved. He was basically taken captive and forced to bear the cross of Jesus, right? So follow me here. He was taken captive and he was forced to follow. He followed in the path of Jesus. And I've always thought to myself, it is so amazing to me. Now, I do not discount that the accounts of the Black people follow very closely to the Jewish people. You have 400 years of slavery and oppression and racism and hatred. A lot of people hate the Jews. You have a lot of anti Semitic people. You have, and for the most part, a lot of Black people, a lot of people, like I said before, a lot of people think racism doesn't exist, but it is very live and well. And if not, in your face, it's systematic, right? So a lot of our history is very identical. Watch, Jesus is going to the cross, and Simon the Cyrene, who was possibly a Black man, a high possibility, a lot of historians say he was a Black man, took the cross of Jesus and followed behind Jesus. So that parallels our with to me it is symbolic. It is symbolic. It's very symbolic, right? So it's almost like foretelling, like, here's a Jew that is and a Black person, and they're going to follow and be very, it's going to be a lot of similarities, headed to the cross. And here's Simon Cyrene, he's taken captive into slavery, and and forced to carry the cross for Jesus. Now, the carrying of the cross is very symbolic too, right? Because what does the cross represent? The cross represents the you know, the cross represents salvation. It represents death. Represents dying to oneself. It represents um uh it represents, the Christian, faith. It's what believers, you don't make an idol out of the cross, but it's very symbolic, right? So you have this Black man that is carrying the cross of Jesus. He helps Jesus carry the cross. So the pastor, so mind you, this has been going swirling around in my head for a while, and he kind of made sense. He was like, the reason why the enemy wants to oppress Black people and to keep us down and to deceive us into believing that we are a people that we are not is to keep us from rising up and delivering the message to the world, and help delivering the message to the world uh, of the cross. Oh wow, that's quite astounding. Like, to me, what an honor, you know. And you could see the rise of Black, people who are coming out of, of just, I see a lot more Black YouTubers and believers that are, the Lord is speaking to, and putting his word into a lot of people. And the thing is, it's like, how what the least expected of people, the most, he would put his word into, I mean, we all have the word, right? But to be, because like I said before, Black people have a way of influencing social and cultural changes. That is undeniable, right? And so here you have Simon and Cyrene, who was carrying the cross. Black people, in my opinion, are supposed to be one of the main carriers of the world to influence the cultural change. Like, we are supposed, it is undeniable that Black people, even when, the songs that we sing, I always, have a joke, and, that I say to myself sometimes, man, when I hear some really good gospel singing, man, Black people, I just always say, Black people gonna be the praise leaders in heaven. I know it's some Black praise leaders in heaven. So, because it's just, God just put something in Black people. And even I've heard Derek Prince, he said the only time that he danced, ever danced in his life, is when he went to Africa, and they were, he said he just couldn't help it. He had to move. He had to dance. And so the only time in his whole ministry that he danced is when he went to Africa, and the music was just so good, and it was just like, that was confirmation, you know. So I personally believe, because this has been something that's been heavy on my mind, why all this other stuff about Hebrew Israelites and being this and being that. And, I personally believe that there's something in Black people, particularly Black men, um, that are supposed to be doing something. I don't know for a fact, but I personally, I kind of feel like it's something that God hasn't probably fully revealed. And I'm like, what other, like, isn't that like God to do something that people would least expect? You know, they would least expect for a Black person to be so influential throughout the world as far as the gospel is concerned. And I I believe too that a lot of prophets are going to be raised up here, with the abolishment uh, of abortion. I do believe that the enemy has killed off a lot of the Lord's prophets, and I do believe a lot of prophets are going to be coming forward. This next generation that comes forward, I believe they're going to be uh, a different breed, because a lot of them have been killed off. And I believe, and notice how the target for a lot of abortions have been to the Black community. See, people, think about this. Those who have ears, let them hear. The target, the original purpose of abortion clinics were to be placed in Black areas to control the population of Black people. They were killing, and spiritually, if you have spiritual eyes and you're looking at this, they were killing off a lot of Black people, a lot of Black prophets that were supposed to come, that were supposed to be here and culturally influencing change, did not make it. So what happened? What took its place? Rap music. You had the coming forth of rap music, and rap music dumbed down the people and control. A lot of people are under bondage with rap music. It just controls the mind. So in its place, so like I was saying before, rap, you can look at rap. So a lot of those people, like, Jay-Z, Kanye, all these people, I do believe they were supposed to be evangelists, and the enemy got to them. But the enemy killed off, so many of Black men and women as babies, that you didn't have anything to counteract that. You didn't have anything to counteract and to kind of raise up, because if they were, subdued by the rap music, they were put in prison because the rap music, changes, is so influential, selling drugs, killing each other and doing all this. And a lot of the prophets and a lot of the people who were supposed to counteract that got killed off. This is my theory. This is my theory. So now, with the abolishment of abortion in a lot of these states, if you notice, there is a rise of a lot of black women that are having kids. They are going to come. They are coming, whether they are in, whether they are, here by, marriage or not, they are coming. And I do believe that a lot of prophets are going to raise up, and a lot of them are going to counteract, and they're going to change the belief of a lot of them, because now God's prophets, a lot of the prophets are going to come forward, not just black people, but white people and enough. But I do believe a lot of the black ones that come forward are going to be so powerful. They are not going to be anything like you have seen. So that is just my 2 cents on this. I hope people start to reevaluate this, and a new narrative is put forth. I know a lot of people say that the Jesus, a lot of people in these groups say that Jesus is not real, that it's the white man's Bible and all of this. But it's weird. It's funny to me how a lot of the slaves that were in that time, a lot of them came out by reading the Bible, you know, and knowing what the Bible says, to know that slavery was unlawful. And then a lot of the white people who joined the slave freedom movement read the Bible and realize that, hey, this is not right. The Bible condemns slavery. It says that you shall not take no man captive. That's what it says. Let me find the Bible verse verbatim. All right, I can't find it now, but yeah, take no man captive. All right, I can't I can't remember the Bible verse, but I've read it so many times. But the Bible straight out condemns taking a man captive for, against his will. It flat out condemns slavery. Now, could people sell themselves into slavery? Yes. Could they become indentured servants? Yes. This is the type of slavery. People say, oh, the Bible condemns slavery. Well, yeah, people sold themselves into slavery as indentured servants to pay off their debts. Just like we go and apply for jobs and get and sell ourselves into, it's it's kind of similar. You know, we go to a job every day from 9 to 5 to pay off what? Our debts. You know, so it was called slavery back then, but it was more so like indentured servants, and it's all documented in the Bible. So that type of slavery was fine. And then even then, I think it's in Leviticus. I can't remember. I think it's in Leviticus, but I think it outlines the guidelines for slavery. Like every few years, they had to let them go, or expunge them of their debts. You know, we see an account of that in the New Testament when the guy comes and he has so much debt that he could not pay, and the guy let him go, but then he turned and told the other people, "Oh, you still owe me debt." So it piggybacks off of the guidelines that were given in the Old Testament. So yeah, people could sell themselves into slavery, and there were guidelines for that. But to take a man captive and force him into slavery is condemned. And so that's and that just goes on to just talk more into the sense of people do not read the Bible. They take for someone else's word on it. And it's amazing how people live their whole entire life with bad doctrine and just build off of that. And one thing I can say about the Bible, when it says that, if you continue to believe a lie, the Lord will send you a strong if you continue to walk in false teaching, you refuse to hear the truth, and you refuse to follow the Lord, He will send you a strong delusion to where you cannot do nothing but believe a lie. That is terrifying to me. And I can see it in people. They are so hard, have a stone full of a heart of stone where they cannot receive anything. you know. So, no, the Bible is not the white man's book. There's so many accounts of black people in the Bible. I just gave you one, Simon the Cyrene. Uh, you know, heck, it goes all the way back to Moses. Moses' father-in-law was Jethro. Jethro was a black man. Jethro helped set up the structure for how to govern, you know? So, you have it all way back to that. The Nicaea, it's so many accounts. So, black people were teaching the Bible, so it's just like, my goodness. It's willful ignorance. They want to people. A lot of people want to stay ignorant, and they want to believe a lie that we are the Black Hebrew Israelites. Why? Because it makes them feel good. It justifies everything that has happened up until now. So, as I end this video, I just want to say that if you have not given your life to Jesus Christ, do so. He is willing to accept you with open arms, and He is just, you know, the revealer of all truth, right? The Holy Spirit teaches us, and He guides us, and He leads us into all truth, right? So, don't be deceived. Test everything. Read for yourself. There are historical books available to easily debunk the lies. To easily debunk the lies, right? So be blessed. And like I said, give your life to the Lord.